one of the other documents released by the House Oversight Committee contained a photo of Jeffrey Epstein holding an oversized check that was made out to him in the check from the president for $22,000 for a fully depreciated woman. I wondered if the president has any recollection of that, or what you guys make of that photo that was included in those documents.
Did you see the signature on that check? It is not Donald Trump's signature. It is absolutely not. The president did not sign that check.
But does he recognize the woman?
No.
Señores, una vez más, la secretaria de Trump, Caroline Leavitt, nos ha demostrado que es pésima en su trabajo. Y sorprende, ¿no? Porque básicamente su único trabajo es mentir. Aún así lo hace muy mal. En esta administración de Trump cambian la historia sobre el tema de Epstein tantas veces que es imposible seguirles la pista. Y bueno, hoy Caroline Leavitt quedó totalmente expuesta. Salió presionada por los reporteros, salió huyendo antes de tiempo y se trabó intentando negar lo imposible de negar, que Donald Trump estuvo implicado en la compra de una chica a través de Jeffrey Epstein. La conferencia empezó con una pregunta bastante incómoda sobre cómo es que Trump bromeaba con la violencia doméstica. Escuchemos.
Yesterday, the president spoke about DC crime and talked about how there was virtually none. And then he expressed frustration about things that take place in the home they call crime. He said, you know, they'll do anything they can to find something. If a man has a little fight with the wife, they say this is crime. See, now I can't claim 100%. Exactly what crimes was the president referring to?
He wasn't referring to crimes. That's exactly the point he was making, Ouija. What the president is saying is that these crimes will be made up and reported as a crime to undermine the great work that the federal task force is doing to reduce crime in Washington, D.C. And I think the president has every reason to believe that, given the efforts of many reporters in this room who actively seek to undermine the president and what he's doing in our nation's capital.
¿Se dan cuenta? Intentan vendernos la idea de que Trump y los republicanos son los que se preocupan por el crimen, mientras el mismo Trump hace chistes sobre violencia contra mujeres. O sea, no tiene ningún sentido. Pero bueno, eso no detuvo a Caroline Leavitt. Poco después se enfrentó a la primera ola de preguntas sobre Epstein y se hundió. Escuchemos.
Address the crime of Irina Zarica, and the president has done a lot to deliver justice for victims of crimes like that horrific stabbing. And the Epstein files are back in the news because a lot of Americans feel that that Jeffrey Epstein's victims never got justice. Does the president care about these victims? Do you think he can does he want to deliver more justice for them, and is he willing to meet with them?
The president cares about victims of all crimes, and that's why Republicans in the Trump Department of Justice have done more in terms of transparency when it comes to the Epstein case than any prior administration. And why are the Democrats all of a sudden caring about this? It's because they are desperately trying to concoct a hoax.
Ella misma se enredó entre las mentiras. Un día dicen que todo esto es un engaño planificado por los demócratas, un hoax. Y al otro dicen que Trump era en realidad un informante del FBI contra Epstein. ¿Cómo puede ser todo falso y al mismo tiempo decir que Trump ayudaba a investigarlo? Y es que nadie puede creerse eso. Y todo esto quedó en evidencia cuando le hicieron otra pregunta clave. Escuchemos.
Thank you. Just I want to follow up on something you said. You said the Epstein documents are a hoax that Democrats are perpetrating against the president. You've said he didn't sign that check, that he didn't sign the birthday card that he allegedly signed. So what is the theory, since these documents came from the Epstein estate? Who is I guess in your view, faking these documents?
I did not say the documents are a hoax. I said the entire narrative surrounding Jeffrey Epstein right now that is absorbing many of the liberal cable channels on television is a hoax.
Amigos, un revoltijo de excusas sin sentido. La bomba real llegó cuando la confrontaron sobre la famosa imagen del cheque que les mostré hoy en horas de la mañana, donde Trump está entregando un cheque de $22,500 a Epstein con una nota, digamos que burlona, sobre la venta de una chica depreciada. Escuchemos.
One of the other documents released by the House Oversight Committee contained a photo of Jeffrey Epstein holding an oversized check that was made out to him in the check from the president for $22,000 for a fully depreciated woman. I wondered if the president has any recollection of that, or what you guys make of that photo that was included in those documents.
Did you see the signature on that check? It is not Donald Trump's signature. It is absolutely not. The president did not sign that check.
But does he recognize
Jordan,
the woman?
go ahead.
Thank you,
No.
Caroline.
The president will be signing a proclamation in the Oval Office later this afternoon, and we will see you all later. Thank you.
Pues bueno, ahí Caroline Leavitt mostró lo poco que tiene para defenderse. Lo único que dijo es, esa no es la firma de Trump. Amigos, Trump tiene una de las firmas más reconocibles del planeta. Es más, la presume todo el tiempo en su Sharpie gigante. Cualquiera la puede identificar. Pretender que no es suya es algo ridículo. Lo más repulsivo es que ese cheque no era solo cosa de Trump y de Epstein, porque había otros miembros de Mar-a-Lago que estaban riéndose de esta broma. Eso significa que todos sabían lo que pasaba. No eran solo amigos, eran cómplices. Aún así, Caroline Leavitt insiste en su absurda defensa.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
About the Epstein case, would the White House support a professional handwriting expert review of the document released yesterday to prove that it's not the president's signature?
Sure, we would support that. And in fact, I have already seen many forensic analysts of signatures coming out. I believe it was the Daily Signal that published a piece with 3 separate signature analysts who said that this absolutely was not the president's authentic signature. And we have maintained that position all along. The president did not write this letter. He did not sign this letter. And that's why the president's external legal team is aggressively pursuing litigation against the Wall Street Journal, and they will continue to. Christian.
Thanks, Caroline.
¿Es que en serio piensan que una discusión sobre la letra de Trump podrá tapar el mayor escándalo presidencial de la historia? Eso es lo que tienen como estrategia. Simplemente negar su propia firma. Un recurso tan desesperado que hasta Lawrence O'Donnell lo desarmó por completo el día de ayer anoche en televisión. Veamos esto.
Running for president against President Obama in 2012, Donald Trump tweeted, "Lawrence will soon be off TV, bad ratings. He has a face made for radio." Donald Trump was actually privately urging NBC to get rid of me in those days, and so the friendly note came as a surprise in January 2016 from someone who I didn't know and who I believed hated me. And on the show that night, I read my response to Donald Trump about receiving that note, and I just said that I said in a letter to Donald Trump that I wrote on the show that I couldn't accept, of course, any kind of contribution or pass on any kind of contribution from a presidential candidate. Given that I report on presidential candidates, I asked him, "I hope you understand this predicament." And then, of course, I, in the end, said, in the meantime, because I was diverting this contribution, I myself would replace the Trump check with a $10,000 check of my own that I then gave to my favorite charity. And so here is tonight's entry in the Trump signature sweepstakes. This is a copy of what I sent. When he sent me this, we made a copy, but I sent this, put it back in the envelope it came in, and sent it back to Donald Trump. Donald Trump's note to me appears in the memo section of the check. And there is the signature to the note, which is just that word Donald. Just Donald, that very friendly signature. And then the full formal signature, Donald J. Trump, below that on the check. And so now, from this Donald right here, we're going to lift this Donald right here, the one-word signature, and put it on the screen. It's going to appear on the screen below the signature that appears on the Epstein birthday letter. Now, obviously, they are different magnifications of those signatures and different thickness, possibly to the writing implement at the time. But you'll see all the basic shapes are exactly the same. All of the grand strokes are exactly the same. Those two signatures are more alike than any two exemplars of my signature, which varies day to day and signature to signature. But we will leave it to you, the handwriting experts in the audience, to make tonight's judgment about just how similar those strikingly similar signatures appear.
Ahí lo tienen, señores. No es discutible, no es debatible. Es muy claro y muy obvio. La evidencia la tenemos ahí. Y bueno, hay que seguir hablando de eso todos los días. La verdad es que Caroline Leavitt no solo es mala en su trabajo, ¿no? Sino que es el reflejo del nivel de pánico que hay dentro del círculo trumpista. Si lo único que tienen para defenderse es negarse la firma de Trump, entonces saben que están perdidos. Bueno, señores, ahora hablemos de lo que está pasando en Estados Unidos con el tema de las redadas migratorias, que al parecer nos da a entender que no es una casualidad. Donald Trump estaría eligiendo a propósito las llamadas ciudades santuario, tal como lo es Chicago, como lo es Boston, para pues montar este espectáculo político de represión. Lo peor es que no se trata de combatir el crimen, no amigos, se trata de utilizar la persecución contra migrantes como el arma electoral. Una forma de querer mostrarnos fuerza a costa de los más vulnerables. Quiero que veamos lo que significa esta operación, porque no es un simple tema de seguridad. Y también que veamos cómo Trump está utilizando el miedo como herramienta política. Así que escuchemos esta noticia.
Okay, so Julia, you mentioned Chicago and Boston. Set the scene for us of what's going to be happening and what's happening in those cities.
Well, they're ramping up, and first, it seems that we're seeing a lot more, really, the theater than we are of the arrests so far. We haven't gotten a lot of details on exactly who's been arrested overnight, and usually they'll come out with a rap sheet of the worst, and then we try to find out, okay, how many people actually had a criminal background. Of course, you saw that, the superimposed picture of Trump doing Chipocalypse Now, trying to look tough in front of Chicago. Mm-hmm. What we understand is they are building an operation in Chicago where they're going to use a naval base just north of the city. They're bringing in 400 to 500 agents and officers, not just from ICE, but from Border Patrol, from law enforcement across the country. That could be DEA, ATF, and they're going to be concentrating their operations. What I understand, really what they would typically do over 3 months within a 3-week period. Similar in Boston, they're going to bring people in there, try to really make a splash. They're picking sanctuary cities on purpose. Tom Homan, who Von Hilliard talked to there, has always really had a thorn in his side. The thorn in his side is sanctuary cities because he says that they stand in the way when they don't cooperate with ICE. But in reality, if you're going to look at cities where you would want to crack down on crime or you would want to go after large immigrant populations, they're not just in blue cities. A lot of them are in red states, but these cities have been targeted on purpose really to show the full force of what ICE can do, especially when they have the gloves, the handcuffs taken off of them with rulings like this, with new policies like not having to fill out a form before they go arrest somebody. So I think we're going to see a ramping up of arrest, and particularly of people who might fit a certain profile. Right. And then those arrested don't always get deported. Sometimes they find out they have a perfectly legal right to be here and they get released later.
Right. Joe?
Hey, Julie, I want to circle back on a couple different stories and get your insight and your expertise. Of course, a couple of days ago, we got the news that the administration blew up a boat of people, killed a boat of people claiming that they were gang members. We, of course, haven't seen really any evidence of that. But basically, they say, trust me. So the policy there was kill first and hope nobody asks any questions later. I'm just curious, their track record on properly identifying who is a gang member and who is not a gang member, now that they're just killing people and claiming they're gang members without any evidence at all. I'm curious, at the end of the day, after we had all of the court hearings, after we had people pushed onto a train and shipped off to El Salvador, and after we were told that they were all hardened gang members, I've seen press reports that up to 75, 80% of those people were not gang members, had never even committed a crime in the United States, a violent or the type of crime that the White House claimed was responsible for them being shipped off to one of the most notorious prisons in this hemisphere. I'm curious, what was your reporting on how many of those that were rounded up, grabbed off the street, thrown into a plane, and flown to El Salvador while courts were telling the administration to stop? How many of those ended up actually being, quote, gang members based on your reporting?
Yeah, well, the problem is, Joe, not only do we not know exactly how many people went to CICAT, that prison you're talking about in El Salvador, because it was never broken down for us, but we also are never going to be able to know the criminal history of those people because they weren't brought back to the United States for due process. They were put onto this plane. We now know that the Venezuelans that were in CICAT have been sent back to Venezuela. The Salvadorans remain. They're in the custody of their own country now. But what this sets up is really a pattern where you don't have to establish criminality or due process for these people. And so we saw in some cases they accidentally put women on those planes that Bukele sent back saying, I don't accept women here. They put an openly gay hairdresser who was trying to escape persecution in Venezuela when he came to the United States. He was sent to CICAT and has alleged a lot of abuse there. We know about, of course, Abrego Garcia, who was sent there despite a 2019 court order saying that he could not be deported to El Salvador. We now understand he may face deportation to Eswatini. All of this comes back to not only could these people not be established as members of this class, they were identified as a foreign terrorist organization that were going to be deported, but the administration never did that. And that's why a circuit court judge said these people that said Nazis were treated better than these people, because at least under the Alien Enemies Act and the way it was used during World War II, if someone was going to be classified as a Nazi, they got the opportunity to defend themselves. In this case, they didn't have the opportunity to defend themselves, that they weren't gang members. And the big piece of this conversation that I feel like no one's having is, say they were the worst criminals.
Right.
Is this cruel and unusual punishment? Or are we now departing from the point where we don't care what happens to someone once we paint them with a certain brush?
NBC's Julia Ainsley, thank you for your coverage. The exclusive NBC News report she co-authored is available to read online right now. And still ahead on Morning Joe, we're going to dig into the new reporting surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein files. What information was released and what comes next? You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right.
Bueno amigos, todo esto nos confirma lo que muchos sospechamos. No es un operativo de justicia, es otro show armado. Por ejemplo, en Chicago, se planea instalar un centro de operaciones en una base naval. Planean traer a cientos de agentes de la agencia ICE, patrulla fronteriza, DEA, todo lo que sea necesario para poder concentrar redadas en pocas semanas que normalmente podrían tardar meses. ¿Por qué? Porque quieren un golpe mediático. O sea, mire lo duros que somos contra los inmigrantes. Ahí tenemos el detalle. Si de verdad quisieran combatir el crimen, ¿por qué solo están eligiendo ciudades santuario? ¿Por qué no actuar también en estados rojos, donde sabemos con datos oficiales que también existen problemas similares o incluso peores? La respuesta es obvia, porque el objetivo no es reducir la criminalidad, es enviarte un mensaje político, es criminalizar a comunidades enteras, reforzar la narrativa anti-inmigrante, el último tema que le queda a Trump con su base radical. Lo más grave es que esto, al menos el detalle profundo, no se ve en los titulares. Muchas personas arrestadas ni siquiera han cometido crimen. Muchas veces, después de las redadas, se descubre que en realidad tienen un estatus legal o tienen derecho a permanecer en Estados Unidos. Y aún así son perseguidos. Aún así son detenidos. Son humillados. Además, el patrón de abuso no es nada nuevo. Recordemos que ya hay deportaciones express, donde el propio gobierno ha admitido haber enviado a personas inocentes a la cárcel en El Salvador, por ejemplo, sin debido proceso, sin pruebas de vínculos criminales. Incluso tuvimos una corte federal que llegó a comparar esta práctica con un trato peor al que recibieron los prisioneros nazis durante la Segunda Guerra Mundial. Yo creo que eso debería de helarnos la sangre. Quienes defienden este tipo de medidas salen a decir, bueno, pero hay que sacar a los criminales. Y ojo, señores, que nadie, ni yo, imagino que muchos de ustedes tampoco, están negando que la seguridad sea importante, ¿cierto? Pero aquí está el punto. ¿Qué pasa cuando arrestas primero y preguntas después? ¿Qué pasa cuando usas a seres humanos como utilería para un show político? Amigos, eso no es seguridad, eso es abuso de poder. Lo que Trump está haciendo es prácticamente escoger a propósito ciudades santuario. Es el mejor escenario de una película propagandística. Agentes entrando, arrestos masivos, titulares ruidosos. Pero detrás de esa fachada, amigos, hay familias destruidas, hay derechos que están siendo pisoteados y un mensaje que tenemos muy claro. Si eres migrante, no importa tu estatus, tú puedes ser la próxima víctima. Yo lo digo claro, esto no es justicia. Esto para mí es represión política disfrazada de seguridad. Y lo más indignante es que mientras se están utilizando estos recursos para este tipo de shows, los problemas de verdad, desde violencia con armas hasta corrupción, siguen sin resolverse. Ahora bien, amigos, yo les pregunto a ustedes, ¿creen que estas redadas son realmente por seguridad? ¿Creen como yo que es puro teatro político de Trump? Los invito a que me dejen sus opiniones en la caja de comentarios. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Recuerda como siempre, dale like, comparte el contenido y suscríbete a nuestro canal. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.